Let's remember the Almighty, the Master. Dhyan Guru Murti Puja Moolam Guru Padam Mantra Moolam Guru Vakyam Moksha Moolam Guru Kripa अंड मंडलाकार है व्यापक विश्वमहान सो सद्गुरु का रूप है अनुभव में पहचान. Jai Sadgurudev. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all in this special series of the online satsang organized by Vihangam Yoga Singapore team. One of the greatest initiatives to share the knowledge from the spirituality, knowledge from the survey, each and every chapter, putting light on each and every particular topic to build our spiritual foundation very, very strong. And definitely, by attending this session, you might be able to understand how to start a journey within yourself. So please stay focused till the end of the session. If you're the first time here, please visit our Facebook page, YouTube channel, because all of our previous sessions recordings are available there. They are very rich in content. If you can understand, please always like, share, subscribe with your friends and family members. Thank you. On behalf of a very dedicated and committed team of Vihangam Yoga Singapore, I am Om Prakash, your host today. Extending our thanks to all our regular attendees of the session, all the newcomers, and our core team members and their family to grace this occasion. Now, let me move to the agenda. As you can see on the screen, the entire session will take about 1 hour to complete. First few minutes for the general introduction and the welcome. At the beginning, there will be opening prayer and there will be a bhajan, followed by the talk. Bhajan timing can be changed. And today's talk is fully dedicated to the topic of eligibility. That's a very interesting topic. There will be great learning for all of us. Some key messages from the survey from the master are going to be revealed. So please listen very carefully. Talk followed by the question and answer. If any question related to the talk will be answered on the spot. However, if it need more time to explanation, that will be continued later on. At the end, there will be a closing prayer and thanksgiving to the everyone. Now let's get ready. For those who are not aware of Vihangam Yoga, allow me to introduce you. Vihangam Yoga Organization is an NGO, a pioneer in yoga and advanced meditation training, aiming at uplifting the human life in all aspects. The organization was established in 1924 by His Holiness Sadguru Saurabh Sinha Ji Maharaj, who discovered this wonderful meditation technique after 17 years of strenuous meditation practice in a dense forest in Himalayas. Today, under the guidance of the Present Sadguru, His Holiness Sri Satantra Dev Ji Maharaj, Vihangam Yoga has reached around 50 countries and has transformed the life of more than 5 million disciples. Our international headquarters is situated on the bank of Holy River called Ganges in Allahabad in India. The organization registered at Sadguru Sadafal Dev Vihangam Yoga Sansthan, a trust in India, and also expanding its wings all over the world, and has become an active member of United Nations Economic and Social Council, UN ECOSOC. While in Singapore, Vihangam Yoga was officially launched in year 2018 in the April. Since then, many activities are ongoing, and now it has become a well-known brand in yoga and meditation in Singapore as well as in Southeast Asia. I also like to introduce one of the unique and the largest center for the meditation to preserve the spirituality as it is for the longer period of time. This center is being constructed under the name of the Sarved Mahamandir, which is very close to the holy city of the Varanasi in India. where about 20,000 people can sit together and do meditation at a time. Please do visit whenever time permits to you. If you are the truth seeker, this must be on your hit list. And also, Saurabh Mahamandir is calling for all of you. The detail will be shared very, very soon, so please stay tuned. Now let's start the session. The first, we're going to offer a welcome song, a small prayer for the world peace and prosperity. The prayer will display on the screen in Hindi and English. To offer a prayer on a holy feet of the Master and get blessing for the session, I would like to invite Mr. Srinivas Ji. Srinivas Ji, joining us from Singapore, has been associated with Vihangam Yoga from almost 5 years. A dynamic personality, a great mentor. You might have heard him in many other international forums. Srinivas Ji for Saurabh and Mangalgan, please.
जय सद्गुरुदेव। स्वागत गान। आज स्वागत नित्य गुरुवर संत शुभागम आइए, अध्यात्म विद्या दिव्य ज्योति सोम रस बरसाइए। दुर्गुण दूर करके शुद्ध हंस बनाइए, गम गति ज्ञान गर्जन शक्ति द्वार हटाइए। सागर भक्त जन अन्वाइए, जन सदा फल विश्व शिक्षक शान आन बचाइए। मंगलगान। विश्व शांति नाम मंगल परम गुरु को ध्याइए, वर्ग द्वंद्व अशांति दूर कर भाव भेद मिटाइए। सार्वभौम समष्टि सत्ता ध्यात्म राज्य बनाइए, देश भाषा भाव जग में ज्ञान पर दर्शाइए। सुख शांति धरातल स्वर्ग भूमि बनाइए, विश्व शिक्षक जान सदा फल नीति स्वर अपनाइए। जय सद्गुरुदेव।
Thank you, Srinivas Ji, for offering Swadgan and Mangalgan. Now let's move forward to the next activity, which is a talk, and I hope we all are waiting for it. Today we're going to talk about eligibility, very interesting topic. In each and every sector of the life, we come across the term called eligibility. While taking admission in the school, while going to university for the next course, or taking a new job, always need to check whatever eligibility is. Based on this, we get the things. Everything designed for their own criteria. So if we are eligible, we can get the things. And if we are not eligible and still trying to do, it may lead to the serious problems. If I quote an example, if I don't know how to drive and I'm still driving on the road, it's going to be threatened myself and also who is driving on the road as well. So in the spiritual context is also matter. Who is eligible for what and how do we become more eligible? There are the few questions need to be answered and need to be understood. I like to read one quote from Sadhguru Kabir. साहिब का घर शिखर पर जहां सिलहली गैल पाँव न टिके पपील का तह खन कन ला दे बैल. Also Swamiji also says, लख 84 भोग के पौ पर अटका आए अब की पासा ना पड़े फिर 84 जाए. For me, they are revealing, they are telling about how eligible we are to walk on a spiritual path. Let's deep dive into the topic today. We have a great speaker joining us from Singapore, Mr. Saurabh Sinha, almost associated with Vihangam Yoga for more than 3 decades. The entire family is blessed by Swamiji, very close to the Swamiji, a senior core team member of Vihangam Yoga Singapore. I am always learning from you. Over to you, Saurabhji, for today's talk.
Jai Sadgurudev, everyone. Thank you, Omji, for introducing the topic to the group. Today, we are going to talk about eligibility. Eligibility in the context of Brahmvidya. So, if you could move to the next slide. Right. Thank you. So, on this slide, you see 4 lids, boxes with lids. We'll go slowly. It's a very busy slide. And today, as opposed to the previous session, there's a lot more stuff which has been put on the slides. So please bear with me when I go through each one of them slowly, one by one. So today we are talking about spirituality. We are talking about eligibility in the context of spirituality. Eligibility for what? Eligibility for getting the knowledge of Brahmvidya. Now, before we go into this topic of eligibility, let's talk about Brahmvidya. What is Brahmvidya and why are we talking about Brahmvidya at all? So Brahmvidya is known as Santamat, Adhyatma, Brahmagyan, Paravidya, Brahmaved, Madhumati, as you can see on the leftmost bar in dark blue. So all these refer to Brahmvidya itself. Now, what is Brahmvidya? Brahmvidya, as we discussed in the last session, is the knowledge of conscious entities. It is the knowledge of the 6 eternal entities. It is the knowledge of Prakriti, the soul, the Akshar Brahma, the Atma, Paramatma, Kal, the various entities which exist. And everything that exists comes under the purview of one of these 6 eternal entities. So Brahmvidya is the knowledge of these conscious entities. What do we mean by knowledge? It is not merely getting to know about it by listening to talks like these or reading books and getting to know about them. Brahmvidya is an experiential body of knowledge. So there are two aspects of Brahmvidya. There is the theoretical knowledge which you can acquire by reading, by listening to people, by attending satsangs, by doing your own research. But then there is this practical side of it, for which you need to do certain things. That is why Brahmvidya is unique. But then the question is, there are many other things. As you can see in the second column, the last point, there are 64 arts, sciences, and masteries that exist in the universe, according to scriptures. So if there are 64 that exist, why do we need this separate body of knowledge, which is Brahmvidya? So the importance of Brahmvidya is that it is the soul of all these 64 arts and sciences. It stands on top of every other body of knowledge. Why? That leads us to a discussion of who we are. As we discussed in previous session, we are ultimately souls who are trapped in the bondage of Prakriti. We are conducting deeds and we are bound by the consequences of those deeds. So we are trapped in this eternal, almost eternal cycle of conduct of deeds and then bearing the consequences of those deeds. That is the problem. So to get liberated from the claws of Prakriti, we need Brahmvidya. Brahmvidya is the only gateway through which the soul acquires the necessary escape velocity to exit Prakriti and get into the conscious realm, where it can then continue its conscious journey towards reaching its ultimate destination, that is God. So a practical knowledge of Brahmvidya is essential. It is a science. And as I said earlier, it is an experiential science. It is not only bookish knowledge which gives you the required experience. You got to back it up with practical meditation in your own lab of the body, from where you do certain things to get liberated. So who brings this knowledge? From where does this knowledge originate? All bodies of knowledge ultimately originate from God. I mean, God is the ultimate source of Brahmvidya as well. That is why Brahmvidya has been called Brahmaja, which means it has come out of, emanated from Brahm, actually the Parabrahm, which is God. The eternal Sadguru entity, whom we discussed last time, is the preacher. He's the first preacher of Brahmvidya. It is that entity which brings that knowledge of Brahmvidya into Prakriti. There is no other source of Brahmvidya in Prakriti other than the eternal Sadguru entity. And the eternal Sadguru entity designates Sadgurus who are visible to us humans, who then impart the knowledge of Brahmvidya to us humans. So the eternal Sadguru does two things. The eternal Sadguru, or in fact, he does more than two things. He brings the knowledge of Brahmvidya to the world at the beginning of creation. Then he ensures that Brahmvidya is the knowledge, or the body of knowledge is always there before everyone. And he designates a Sadguru who's the visible face of the knowledge of Brahmvidya before the world. Who is Brahmvidya meant for? Are there any restrictions? No. Brahmvidya is meant for all of humanity. It is meant for men and women of all races, religions, sects, geographies. So it's meant for everybody. Everybody has a right to do certain things, to get out of the bounds of Prakriti and reach the ultimate destination, which is God. However, eligibility is required. We will see why eligibility, what does eligibility actually do? It is a technical thing. It is not a broad statement being made, or you need to be eligible, you need to be very good and all that. We'll come to why eligibility is required. It's a technical definition. Eligibility is required for not only possessing Brahmvidya, but also retaining Brahmvidya. Otherwise, this body of knowledge will not stay in us. First of all, it would not enter us if we are not eligible. And even if it enters because we have certain good deeds done in previous births, it may not stay. So to make it enter us and to make it stay within us, we need to become eligible. And that is why we are discussing eligibility here. You can go to the next slide now. So before we go into the positive aspects of eligibility, I thought let us first discuss what characteristics are not eligible, or what actually takes us away from eligibility to acquire the knowledge of Brahmvidya. So whatever you see in this slide takes you towards 0% eligibility. What are these? Ego. Now, ego has two connotations. In one sense, ego is a characteristic of the soul. One of the four essential inner organs of the soul is ego, which gives the soul its sense of existence, separate from that of other conscious entities. But the egoistic framework that is being used in this slide is meant for egoism in the context of the material world. So you know who's an egoistic person. Egoistic person cares only about himself or herself. What are the characteristics? Gets easily angered, is craving for fame and recognition. What is in it for me in anything that I do? When such a person goes into a satsang, he will simply be hearing, but he is not listening actively. So that is one of the aspects of egoism. He's an overconfident person. He seems to know everything, doesn't want to, or doesn't need to be told anything, not ready to learn anything. So such a person by default becomes not eligible, because if Brahmvidya wants to come to him, he is not ready to take it because he thinks he already knows everything. Then we go to the next one. Swamiji has written in the Swarved. No, we go to the previous slide. We go to the next point. Sorry, we go to the previous. We go to the next point. Point number B. Swamiji has written in the Swarved that meat eaters, drunkards, consumers of narcotics and other addictive substances. So the term used for these substances is abhakshya and apaya, things which should not be consumed. Why? Because they change the prakritic framework. If you go into the basics of our constitution based on the 5 attributes of nature and the 3 gunas of sattva, raj, and tam, meat eating and consumption of narcotic substances and addictive substances takes us away from the sattva prakriti and moves us into more of raja and tamas, which takes us away from absorption of Brahmvidya. Point number C, an ineligible person is by nature restless. He has lack of control over his senses. He's impulsive by nature, fickle minded, very independent, does not conform to set rules and regulations, always wants to break away and do things on his own. He's confrontational. It's okay to be confrontational in a positive sense, but this person is argumentative. He doesn't simply want to understand or accept. He doesn't have faith. He simply wants to challenge everything without being patient, without doing it and seeing it for himself and then believing. He just wants to negate everything that is being told to him. So such a person, of course, how can such a person get into Brahmvidya? Then we go to point number D. Brahmvidya stays away from attached and depraved persons. People who have unbridled desire for sensory gratification, lustful people, womanizers, and people who do not follow celibate behavior. There are 8 breaks of celibacy which have been talked about in scriptures. We can discuss it later in the Q&A session if there are questions on it. Then point number E. An ineligible person does not understand the importance of seva or service. He would not be able to sit in a satsang. Like, for example, if you consider this as a satsang, this person would be itching to get a chance to move out of a satsang. It's boring for this person. This person simply does not seem to be interested. Some of the ineligible people they lack education and wisdom as well, for the reason they are not unable to understand what is being told in a satsang. Lethargic people who are like very dull, they don't simply want to do this. The Hindi word for it is kin kartavya vimud. That kind of a situation where person simply is lack of interest in doing anything, good or bad, whatever. So such a person becomes ineligible. And finally, crooked kind of people, greedy, effeminate, guileful, deceptive, dishonest, hypocritical, untrustworthy. These type of people are also not eligible. So in a nutshell, all that you see in this slide gets 0% points for eligibility. Now let's go to the next slide. Now you compare and contrast with what are the characteristics of eligible seekers. These are the people in whom Brahmvidya will enter and stay. So see the box on the extreme left on the top in dark blue. The 6 virtues. People who have these 6 virtues are called Shiro Vratdhari. What are these? And these are the 6 attributes of Shadang Yoga. These people have Sham, Dam, Titiksha, Uparti, Shraddha, and Samadhanata. What are these? They have a tranquil mind. They have control over their senses. They have endurance and patience. Their desires are satiated. They renounce the lures of Prakriti for sensory gratification. They have faith in the knowledge of Brahmvidya and in the Sadguru in whom they take refuge. They listen to what Sadguru says with extreme focus, attention, and mental balance, and try to absorb or imbibe most of what is being told to them. These are the 6 virtues. These are the main virtues of eligibility. All other boxes that you see ultimately lead to these 6 attributes. So, for example, in light blue, you see that these people are ready to rise to higher levels of knowledge. What do you mean by that? Through gain of eligibility, their intellect or their buddhi becomes more vikasit, more developed over a period of time. Through meditation, they are able to subjugate their mind. They are able to do self-introspection in order to continually check where are they over these 2 slides. In terms of eligibility, are they improving eligibility day by day? In terms of being ineligible, which we saw on the previous slide, are they getting away from that slide, and are they moving into this slide in terms of their life on a day-to-day basis? This person has self-confidence. This person is polite, has no ego. He has intellect and wisdom, but he has no pride of knowledge. He does not have any pride. He does not take any pride in terms of how much he knows. He is not there exhibiting his knowledge or intellect before everyone to gain fame and recognition. Instead, he is humble. He is obeisant to the Sadguru. He has completely surrendered himself through body, mind, soul into the feet of the Sadguru. That is why you see in the gray, he has a cleansed body and soul. His heart is pure. It is one without deceit. He is not a crooked person. Instead, his soul is seeped in love of the Lord. It is from within, he is quite tender. So Brahmvidya can enter into that tender soul, into that soul which is simple, sahaj. These people have mumukshuta. They have the desire of being liberated. They are mumukshus, they are real seekers. And that is why they get attached to the Sadguru with mind, thought, speech, and deeds. These people, when you see the points written in yellow, they serve saints. They attend satsangs regularly. They understand the importance of seva and satsang. Of course, as said earlier, they don't have any aspiration and desire for sensory gratification. They have satiation and renunciation. So they are vairagis, the uparati virtue that you saw in the 6 virtues. They are supremely detached from the stimuli of their senses, which you can see in the sham and the dam in the 6 virtues. And they are able to exercise restraint over the use of these sense organs and organs of deed as well. We can go to the next slide. So in the context of in the context of Vihangam Yoga, how is eligibility acquired? How do we move from the slide that you saw earlier on who is ineligible to the slide you just now saw, the slide of eligibility? As the slide of ineligibility gets 0 points, the previous slide that you saw gets a full 100 points. All of us, or most of us, are somewhere there in this continuum between 0 and 100. And this is a journey. This is a journey of eligibility that we are trying to undertake using Vihangam Yoga as a via path or as a medium. And Vihangam Yoga gives us the mantra of 4 S's. We talk about seva, we talk about satsang, we talk about swadhyay, and then we talk about sadhana. These are the 4 virtues which are not independent. They are linked to each other and they have a feedback loop mechanism. So they amplify each other and there is a positive feedback. For those who are engineers would understand the concept of amplifiers. So each of these quadrants acts as an amplifier for the other quadrants. And we don't need to start in any one quadrant. We need to work on all the 4 quadrants simultaneously, side by side, with one reinforcing the other. So when you focus on all the 4 quadrants, you will see later on when we go to the next slide what happens. So we remain on this slide for now. We remain on this slide. Yeah. So what does seva give us? Seva gives us humility. When you are performing service, it brings humility into you. It brings selflessness. There's an element of tyag or sacrifice, an element of surrender. You're giving up stuff for performing service. And that brings tenderness into the soul, into what surrounds the soul in terms of the prakritic elements, that is the mind and the intellect. They become more conducive to receive Brahmvidya and to keep Brahmvidya within us. Good company is nothing but satsang. We regularly attend the company of the truthful and the learned to learn and to listen and learn from them. What does this lead to? Improved intellect and a purer mind. The mind moves to higher levels. It moves to virtuous levels. The mind is a double-edged sword. If the mind is virtuous, it helps us to perform good deeds. It takes us into the right path. And when the same mind becomes lower down in terms of its attributes, it propels us or it predisposes us towards things which are not useful for us. So attending satsangs would give us eligibility. Self-reading, which is called swadhyay, of scriptures, especially the Swarved. Why should we read? It helps improve our theoretical understanding of Brahmvidya. And we can corroborate what practical experience we are gaining through our meditation with what has been written in Swarved. So we can verify, corroborate, ratify, and see for ourselves where we are in the pecking order in terms of experience. It also is a tool for self-introspection. It also purifies mind and widens our intellect. And finally, the most important thing, if we keep on, if we keep on doing surveys, good company, self-reading, but we don't actually do the most important part, which is meditation, then we lose out. Because meditation is the practical part. It is the part where we actually take the consciousness of our soul upwards. And we actually make that journey towards our ultimate destination. So everything that we are doing is for progress in meditation. So if we don't sit in meditation for even 10 minutes, the only thing that has been requested by the Sadguru in his proclamation, Adbhut Marg Yog Vihangam मैं तुझको बतलाऊंगा यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करी हो अमर लोक पहुंचाऊंगा. These are his opening lines. If you meditate as prescribed, I will take you to the Lord. Now, if you don't meditate, if you keep on doing service and satsang and swadhyaya, they are good. But ultimately, they are supposed to give you the fillip in meditation. In those 10 minutes, when you sit and you have the three quadrants which are performing for you, then in those 10 minutes, you will achieve what you cannot achieve otherwise. The blessing of the Sadguru would come to you in meditation in those 10 minutes if the other three quadrants are working for you. And if all these four are working properly, and if you compare yourself week on week, month on month, year on year on the previous two slides on ineligibility and eligibility, you will see for yourself how you are moving away naturally from the vices towards the virtuous path. Now we can go to the next slide. So what to do after you acquire eligibility? I mean, wherever you are, if wherever you are, you have acquired a bit of eligibility, you surrender before the Sadguru. Scriptures ask you to worship the Sadguru in 16 ways, and so does even Swarved. There are 16 ways in which the Sadguru has to be worshipped, and we can go through it in the question and answer session if there are questions. But suffice to say, you need to surrender before the Sadguru, after which the Sadguru prescribes Brahmvidya to you. Now, Brahmvidya, the actual Brahmvidya is a conscious knowledge. So what we are doing in the first three steps of meditation of Vihangam Yoga is actually we are trying to acquire eligibility. At the same time, in parallel, we are trying to control the mind. We are trying to make the mind pure to the extent possible, but within the realm of Prakriti. The actual Brahmvidya, where this slide actually is meant for that level, comes in play then. Because at that level, before, without complete surrender, you will not move ahead any further. So after you get the knowledge of Brahmvidya, you progress on the path of meditation, actually conscious meditation. You continue to engage with the Sadguru to resolve queries. After you have acquired eligibility, the Sadguru Acharya will resolve your queries. Before that, when we are not eligible, the Sadguru Acharya is actually not supposed to answer all your questions, especially some of the deeper questions. So before reaching that level, we need to first acquire certain experience, certain level of experience and eligibility. And assuming that you have reached where you want to be in the eligibility continuum, then it is an even bigger challenge to maintain eligibility, because otherwise there's a risk of falling off, because it's a very treacherous path. Moving up is like planting a tree and letting it grow, and to fall is like cutting a tree, which takes minutes. So that is how treacherous this path is, and that is why so few have been able to sustainably continue on this path. We can go to the next slide. So this one it repeats in a way what we have already talked about. The Sadguru, which is on the leftmost block, the Sadguru is obtained after multiple births of conduct of good deeds. See, there are so many people in this world, 7 billion, 8 billion plus, but not all have come across the Sadguru, because their time has not yet come. They will still need to wait, and through the conduct of good deeds, good karma balance, they would at some stage find the Sadguru. So eligibility comes into play here. To learn Brahmvidya, eligibility is required because it can be preached only to eligible seekers. Then to absorb and retain the knowledge of Brahmvidya, eligibility is required. To rapidly advance in meditation, we require eligibility. And finally, an eligible seeker or an eligible meditation practitioner gets the required tools to recognize other knowledgeable people. So when you want to get satsang or sit in the company of the truthful and the learned, how do you know who's truthful and learned? Who will be able to actually give you what you want, which will be useful for you? It's only when you become eligible yourself that you are able to gauge. So it gives you the meditation pathway of Vihangam Yoga gives you the gauge to be able to recognize the level of other yogis. We can go to the next slide. So based on the various levels of eligibility, the disciples or the seekers have been put under 5 buckets. Or at the top, you have the superior most level, and at the bottom, you have the low or the lowest levels. So most of us seekers are somewhere down below. Low, lowest, junior. This is where we are operating. So in terms of the 2 slides on ineligibility and eligibility, we are somewhere in this continuum, sub 50%, I would say. The moment you reach above 50%, moving towards the virtuous realm, you would get into the medium level of Shishya. And the superior most are the ones who actually are completely eligible, at which level Brahmvidya, the actual Brahmvidya, the conscious part of Brahmvidya is preached to them by the Sadguru. So the thing to understand in this slide is that spiritual understanding of seekers varies on 2 dimensions. It is separated in time. So for the same seeker itself, the kind of knowledge that the seeker had last year will be different from the level of knowledge or understanding of Brahmvidya the same seeker has today. And it will be different from what it will be next year. Now, it is not given that once knowledge has come in, that knowledge will stay. It is quite possible that if your levels of eligibility fall, the knowledge will not stay in you. Even the practical part of the knowledge will not stay in you. It will get out of you. So to be able to sustainably maintain that level of knowledge and improve upon it, you need to keep on building eligibility. That is the key message. So the level of understanding of seekers is separated in time, and different level of seekers have different levels of understanding of Brahmvidya because their eligibility levels are different. Now note here that the Sadguru's body of knowledge of Brahmvidya is the same. The Sadguru is an eternal entity. That platform which is carrying the level of Brahmvidya, the knowledge of Brahmvidya, does not change. It is not subject to hras and vikas because it's a conscious entity. And Brahmvidya is a body of conscious knowledge. That body of knowledge never changes. It does not undergo hras and vikas. It stays as it is. From minus infinity to plus infinity in time, Brahmvidya is the same. What changes is our eligibility. So when we become more eligible, that body of knowledge starts to descend into us. And that descent, the rate of descent becomes rapid the more we climb the eligibility ladder. Conversely, if we fall in our levels of eligibility, the body of knowledge which is there in us, that starts to disappear, and the fresh knowledge which was not yet in stops. It cannot come in. That is the way the design is. What is the fundamental reason why this happens? It is because that body of knowledge is extremely sukshma, because it is at the platform of the eternal Sadguru, which is the sukshma entity. It is ati sukshma, like God. So for that sukshma knowledge, body of knowledge to penetrate you, your own eligibility must be so high that you are receptive to that sukshmata, to receive that sukshmata. Otherwise, if you are sthul in your own disposition, that sukshma body of knowledge is unable to enter you. That is why we need humility. That is why we need tenderness. That is why we need sahajita. So this is what eligibility is all about. Yeah, we can go to the next one. This is the final slide. The appointment of the Sadguru is also eligibility based. So the Sadguru appointee is not out of this purview of the concept of eligibility. When the eternal Sadguru chooses his appointee from the whole universe, the eternal Sadguru also looks for the most deserving soul and the most eligible soul to give his swati or his flow of knowledge. This person who's the most eligible has to be completely pure, self-surrendered, and an ananya sharan shishya, undividedly devoted. And then the Sadguru will impart his conscious energy or the conscious brilliance into this person. Once the swati of the Sadguru flows into such a person, the soul of that person becomes completely different, because it becomes imbued with the energy of that conscious eternal entity called the eternal Sadguru. Therefore, that blessed soul no longer remains the same in its attributes, in his attributes. He becomes a completely different person, because he is now one with the eternal Sadguru. So therefore, the appointment of the Sadguru is also eligibility based. So eligibility, the concept of eligibility applies to one and all, to all souls. And this is where we would like to end today's talk. Happy to answer any questions. We can go to the next slide.
Srinivas here, and first and foremost is you make it sound so simple in the way you present it. Thank you so much for that. Not that we are not aware, but the way you presented it is amazingly clarifying. But at the same time, I'm using the word here. At times it sounds scary. The eligibility criteria sounds scary. But that's where my question is, the eligibility is not a prerequisite, correct? Eligibility is something which you have to attain over a period of time.
Yeah.
Correct? Am I right to understand like that?
True.
Okay, thanks.
So, okay, so if that is the only question, then I'll go further. So, see, ultimately, there are 5 levels of meditation, or there are 5 levels of shishyas also in Brahmvidya, Vihangam Yoga. Ultimately, pure Vihangam Yoga exists only in levels 4 and 5, which is the conscious level of Vihangam Yoga. The other 3 levels are actually building of eligibility towards getting to Vihangam Yoga in the true sense. In the process, we are simultaneously working on creating the requisite infrastructure in terms of aligning our minds, getting control over our minds, because those are the practical tools which will be required in the fourth level of Vihangam Yoga, which is actually where Brahmvidya starts to come into play. So until level 1 to 3, you are absolutely right in saying that we are somewhere in the continuum between 0 and 100. The objective is to go to the slide which showed you the characteristics of a completely eligible person from the slide that showed you the characteristics of a completely ineligible person.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
I have one question. This is Prabhat again. Certainly, rightly, Srinivasan ji said, yes, you made it so simple and so easy for common man to understand. I have no words to praise. Now, the problem is one of the criteria for eligibility is सहजता. और मुझे लगता है कि this is my personal feeling, सहजता, it's built in nature over a period of time. And it is the biggest obstruction of mankind to get connected, what you are saying, to meet that criteria in order to have the blessings of Sadguru. Am I right in that, in my understanding?
Absolutely, sir. Ultimate. So, yeah, it's very difficult to define Sahajta, but yeah, so Sahajta is, in very simple terms, simplicity. And there's no better way to explain it, but suffice to say that the ultimately eligible people are Sahaj. Because what is Brahmvidya or what is Vihangam Yoga? It is Sahaj Yoga. Everything is Sahaj. Sahaj means easy, simple, without any layers, very natural. And that is the way it is supposed to be. I mean, it is like almost like a newborn baby or a childlike kind of attribute that you need to come to within yourself. The best way in which I could describe Sahajta or give you a synonym for Sahajta in Hindi is Komalta. Yeah, so that's all that I can say over here.
Yeah, I understand, but see, I've met a lot of persons in my lifetime. Some people are by birth, they are Sahaj, and we are in between. Or that creates problem in terms of surrendering yourself to the Sadguru. Because when you are not Sahaj, then a lot of things keeps on coming and logic and this and that, to do this, not to do this. This is not correct, that is not correct. So your logical sense or your logical mind unnecessarily creates an obstruction in your journey towards what we are trying to attain. And that is where I feel I'm stuck. That's always the issue with me. I'm not talking about anybody else.
So that's what Kabir Sahab said, right? Prem gali ati sakri, ya mein do na samahi. So it is about, the whole journey is about sukshmata and sahajta.
Yes.
And what comes in between or what comes in our way is our mind, our intellect.
Sorry. Yeah, yes, correct.
So it is the mind and intellect which is our enemy. And that is what Vihangam Yoga tries to take head on or confront in the first level itself. Now, in terms of the vices as well, the vices are of different levels of microscopicness or sukshmata. So the vices which are very subtle are the vices which will be the last to go away as well. So those vices will not disappear. And as you said rightly, some people are born naturally Sahaj. Now, it is for that we need to understand the continuum of life itself. We are able to see only or appreciate only one time span of 80, 90 years. We have no idea that this continuum exists on both sides for millions, billions, and infinite number of years in which we have had infinite births as human beings and as other into other yonis as well. So all of us have a balance sheet which is there in our chit, one of the four organs of the soul, internal organs. The chit is the memory bank of infinite memory storage capacity, which has the lekha jokha or the details of each of the deeds which we have conducted. Now, the deeds can be anything. You could have done something, or you could have even thought about something. Even a thought is a deed, even though it is not translated into action. So all of those deeds, the lekha jokha is there in the chit, and some of the consequences of those deeds. I mean, you know about the Gita thing that karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So when you conduct a deed, you are bound by the consequences of those deeds. So some of those consequences of those deeds which we have conducted come to us then and there. For example, you eat food, your hunger is satiated then and there. So you get the result then and there. But some parts, some deeds that we conduct, their consequences are divorced in time. They do not come to us then and there. The deed is conducted at point time t, and the consequence of that deed will come at time t plus 2. That is the reason why the whole world gets confused, and some of them are not ready to accept the philosophy of karma, because they say that, hey, I was so good in my birth, I am such a religious guy, I do so much charity, yet so many bad things keep happening with me. So how can I become how can I become Sahaj? I don't believe. I become a Nastik. I become an atheist, because they don't understand this divorcing of the deed and its consequence in time. So some of the consequences of your past deeds, which have not yet expired, which you have to bear, they are stored as sanchit karma. Where? In our chitta. The deeds which you have done, for which you have borne the consequences, those are expired. The P&L gets matched and those go away. But certain deeds which you did in your previous births, for which the consequences have not been borne, are stored in your chit as sanchit. And a portion of that sanchit gets predefined, predestined to you as prarabdha, even before you get into the next birth. So from one birth to the other, first the prarabdha comes. Pehle prarabdha, piche bhaya sharir. The sharir is given next to you. For what? To bear that prarabdha for that particular life. So jab prarabdha mil gaya, when you got the prarabdha, that becomes your bhog for most of your life. Now, if your prarabdha is such that the consequences of the deeds that you have to expire in this life are of a particular nature, your predisposition, chitta ki vritti, the predispositions will become of that, will be aligned to your prarabdha. So the journey for that person to become Sahaj becomes all the more difficult if the prarabdha is acting against. But the salmon flows against the flow of gravity to lay its eggs. So the journey or the mean marg or the Vihangam path is defying gravity. So that is where your Purusharth comes in. You as a human being have certain free will as well, in which you have to fight your own prarabdha if your prarabdha is not conducive. So this good prarabdha or bad prarabdha, that is something which we don't have any control over. What we have control over is that 20-30% of deeds which we can do out of our own free will. That is our purusharth. And that is the purusharth which we need to do in our life through the 4 S's, Seva, Satsang, Swadhyay, and Sadhana, which will give us the eligibility and which will make us Sahaj one day, even if we are not Sahaj today. So the journey is towards Sahajta. The continuum is from asahajta towards sahajta. And unless there is sahajta, Brahmvidya will not come into us and it will not stick into us. The journey has to be made by us through our own purusharth.
Thanks.
Welcome.
It's very clear. You have explained in a very nice.
Thank you.
Wonderful explanation, Saurabh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Basic tools you have guided, Seva, Satsang, or Sadhana, and with surrender to the Master, will be slowly will be eligible, and we go to the higher and higher, and achieve the ultimate goal of the 5th stage of the meditation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Saurabh.
Very welcome, sir.
Any more question? All right. Swamiji says in a survey, Sahaj Sahaj Sabhi Kaha, Sahaj na jana koi, Jin Sahaje Indriyata Ji, Sahaj Kahi Je Soi. Swamiji also says, Sahaj Sahaj Sabhi Kaha, Sahaj na jana koi, Jin Sahaje Hari Ji Mile, Sahaj Kahi Je Soi. Thank you, Saurabh Ji, for today's wonderful talk. Many hidden things we revealed here, and now we have more clarity on the eligibility. Eternal Sadguru entity are the one who bring the knowledge to the Prakriti in the nature. Brahmvidya is always within everyone. It meant for everyone. Ego, mate, narcotics, no control over the sense, dishonesty, all play a part to make us zero eligible. Brahmvidya stay in 6 virtues, which we call is the Siruvradhari. Sam, Dam, Titiksha, Vairagya, Shraddha, and Samadhanta are the important. Service, meditation, good company, and the self-reading are very important to help us develop the understanding, to make us more eligible. And of course, meditation is the key to the eligible. So please focus more and more on the meditation part, the sadhana. Our ultimate aim is to reach, to become more subtle on that level where the Swamiji says, Aankh na moondo, kaan na roondho, tanik kast nahi dharo, khule nain pahichano, hasi hasi, sundar roop niharo. Now let's move forward to the next, which is the Santi part. I would like to invite Pranavji to offer Santi part on the holy feet of the Master. Everybody please join the Santi part.
जय सद्गुरुदेव. शांति पाठ. हे प्रभु शांति स्वरूप हो, शांति शांति मैं शांति, शांति शांति जन शांति हो, पूर्ण शांति मैं शांति. हे प्रभु शांति प्रदान कर, दूर हो सर्व अशांति. देव सदा फल शांति मैं, शांति शांति सुख शांति, शांति शांति सुख शांति. Thank you, Jai Satgurudev.
Thank you, Pranavji, for offering Santi part. And it was a nice, successful session. All participants get ready within a short span of the time. Thank you, Srinivas for always being a part of this satsang and also taking lead in all other in-person activities. Thank you, Saurabh for guiding us all the way. It was a wonderful delivery and we learned a lot. We'll definitely work on the path of the eligibility and we will waiting for your other lectures as well. Thank you, Pranayji, for supporting us all the way and in this stage basically. And it is really motivating to all of us. And thank you, Pudarji, Anilji, Vikasji, and Prabhaji joining us from Malaysia. Thank you, Harishji, to make this session successful. And thank you, Vihangam Yoga team, to give me the opportunity to serve you here. Last but not the least, as you can see the picture of the survey on the screen, which we call is the Encyclopedia of Spirituality. This holy book composed by His Excellency Sadhguru Sadafal Dev Ji Maharaj. This book is in Hindi. English version will be available very soon. We highly recommend to keep a copy of the survey, read few couplets before start meditation. Please feel free to reach us if you don't have survey. And here you can take a screenshot of this page where you can see our daily activities and weekly activities as well as the quarterly activities. If anybody has any question, please unmute yourself when we are near to the end of the session. Any question, please unmute yourself. We will try to assist you as much as possible. So far, no question. This is the end of the session. Thank you everyone for your participation. See you in the next session. Till the time, take care, stay happy, healthy. Bye-bye and Jai Sadgurudev.